second, the same as third, and third was 7 miles an hour. That made a nice tractor. Paying and raking, boy, that was nice. And nobody did that. I wonder why they didn't do that.
They must have wanted the low speed.
Oh, 3 miles an hour is that's about what a horse walks in the field working, you know, about 3 miles. 3 miles an hour.
So that's what they based it off of.
When we go load of corn to town with mules, they probably wouldn't go any faster than that going, but coming home, you just let the lines loose and their ears would flop and they could walk home 6 miles in an hour. So they'd walk 6 miles an hour. But with a walker, the saddle horse is a walker, he'd go 7 miles in, I don't know, just a few minutes. Well, they'd take me over and Uncle John would, and I'd get the horse out and get on it, and they would go back and pick their groceries up. They had them bought. And 7 miles, they'd catch me with the car when I was going in the lane. You know how a walker is. You know, they don't, you couldn't get him to trot or gallop. He would just both feet on the same side. About the same speed that a horse would gallop, because I used to ride him with them guys that had horses. Their horses would have to gallop to keep up with him. And he could go half a day and never sweat. Another horse would ride with me, just wet.
Because he'd be galloping.
He was really a horse. Boy, he was a stallion. And there's a guy up at Tim Miller that's raising. He took a what are they in Tennessee Walker. He bought some mares, and there's one mare that he could breed to a jack, and he was getting walking mules.
Oh, jeez.
People would just come and get noticed. Boy, if I was younger, I'd want a walking mule. Boy, Josh, they're just smooth. You just ride them, there's no jiggle. And the horse that gallops, you're going like this, you know. But he was just as smooth as could
So
be.
both feet on the same side.
Both feet on the same side, they just run like that. And that's the way they do on the race carts, you know, the walkers. I got that race cart buggy at home. Uncle John used to, but they put a walking harness on them and make them do that. You used to make a horse do that.
I think I'd take a mid-70s Thunderbird, maybe.
Huh?
I think I'd take a mid-70s Thunderbird instead of a walking mule.
That Thunderbird I had. Josh, I left one morning to go to Salt Lake City. Well, Provo is south of Salt Lake City. And it was light. I don't remember what time in the summer, but it was light. 700 miles to Salt Lake City. And I went to Salt Lake City, to Provo, and back to Salt Lake City before dark. But on it, in Wyoming, there was no traffic. I just set it right on 100, and it just sit there and run. Boy, it just...
And now if I did that, would I be responsible or a little bit reckless?
Not with it. You know, that car, Josh, you can actually get on a big lot and get it to going fast. I never did.
No.
But you could just spin them.
Yeah, you never did that, though.
They never, no, I never.
Never did that, no. You saw somebody do it, but not with yours.
My brother had 2 or 3 of those, and a patrolman, he drove real fast. Patrolman would fight his lights, and he'd take off for home, and he'd outrun them all the time. He's clocked his, they timed it at 150. Their gear ratio was good in the back, you know.
And
Like when I was probably doing
good in the back.
when I was probably doing 100, my motor probably wasn't doing really fast, maybe 3,000. Not real fast. And we was at Albion one morning eating breakfast. I went with him somewhere. Patrolman was there, and he'd outrun that patrolman a number of times. He'd get home and in the garage and shut the door. You're only 2 blocks off the highway, and the patrolman would come by. Never could find him. But the patrolman says, "Which way are you going?" I said, "I'm going to Columbus." Okay. But he never did get caught. They couldn't catch him. But I never tried anything like that.
No. Never tried
The
anything.
only thing I had fun doing, and I couldn't get him to try it, when I was working at Grove Lake, I'd go to Royal. I had a 53 Ford, and I'd get on the rails. That thing just fit them rails. And let loose of the wheel and just sat there and click, 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 click. I'd drive to Highway 14 and get off and go home. Boy, I don't know why, a 53 Ford, there's a guy at Elgin that had a convertible 53. And he'd go to Albion, the truck followed the highway, put it all the way up. He'd get on the truck, he'd get it to going, and he'd climb in the back seat, sit there, and people would see him going down the rail, him sitting in the back seat. You know, you had to crank that wheel clear off to get it to leave the rail. It didn't want to leave it. I don't know why. I don't know if it just sat kind of on the edge on the inside, I suppose.
On the rims?
Huh?
You think it sat on the rims or on the frame?
No,
It sat on
somehow
the
the-
tires.
tires.
But the tires must have been on the edge of the tires.
On the outside. The tire sat outside
No, they
or
wrote
inside?
I don't know. I don't know which way it was. But it was, you couldn't get it off the rail. That was fun. You go over the bridges and stuff.
Oh, yeah, that'd be fun. Except for if the train came.
You never did meet a train.
Well, that's why you're sitting here. I could have told you that you never met a train because I can see you right
I
now.
never did have a patrolman. See, that truck goes along the highway for those few miles. I never did have a patrolman.
Well, that's not his jurisdiction.
Yeah.
But that would, the 53 Ford would just hug those rails. And it was so smooth and quiet, just click, 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 click on your tires. I think if I could find a 53 Ford, I'd buy one.
I don't think you'd want to try it again.
If I could get if they'd give me the time the trains are going to go, I could follow one. And I could come up here on the rail, it'd be so smooth.
Bathroom break may be tough. Fuel could be tough.
Run out of gas, that'd be bad.
Yeah, that'd be bad.
Well, I imagine, see, those rails, all those rails were smaller rails. Their main rails on UP and the Southern Pacific, they're higher. They're 35 pounds a foot.
Okay.
When I was working on the Southern Pacific, we'd have 30-foot rails and we'd replace.
How many?
You had to get ready and get the bolts just loose enough, get a few spikes out, because on there, about every 15 minutes, the train would go. We'd have to take a rail up, put one in, and get it bolted and get a spike.
Ready for the next.
Next train to come by.
And how many pounds a foot?
35 pounds.
And you do a
30 foot.
so right at
6 of us
1,000
do.
pounds.
We had rail tongs. 2 men here and 2 men in the middle, 2 men in the back. And you know, I told Ralph, that's why I guess they picked me. You had to yell at guys to come and help lift the rails. You know, you knew it had to be done. You grabbed the tongue and you got ready and you was there waiting for him to get it loose enough that you could move it. And you had to yell at people. So that's why I guess, for some reason, they picked me to, you knew about they put me in Salem?
Haven't heard this one.
I'm working on the extra gang, and Harry Davis, I didn't know him then. He's the head guy out of Portland, the Southern Pacific. They motioned to me, and they took me into Salem, and Cannery Street is along the Umpqua River, and there was 2 blocks that they wanted the pavement taken out as wide as the ties. It was thick pavement. The rails was in pavement.
Okay.
And they had a big compressor some there. And they said, well, they showed me how they wanted it done, how wide, and they left. 95-pound jackhammer, 2 blocks. And I worked away at it there, you know. We was taught to work, and I thought, well, this is crazy. What's going on? That compressor will run 2 or 3 or 4 jackhammers. And here I was all alone doing that. Why am I there? And it went on 2 weeks. I finished it. And when I was about done, this guy walked up. It was the head guy of the Southern Pacific. And I said, tomorrow I'll be through. And I said, I'm going home for a while, because then we picked corn by hand. And it was in November, or it was late. And Dad didn't have his corn out yet, but he didn't, so I was going to go home and help. He said, I want you to come back in February, and I'll put you on as an engineer. Hundreds of people out of work, but there was testing me, and the extra gang foreman said, you thought you was alone. There was a guy watching you every minute of every day.
And what year was that?
That was when I was 19, so that would be 18 and 19.
37.
37.
1937.
But there's hundreds of guys, but he said, you just can't pick a guy and put him in there, because he'll be piddling around. You gotta watch that rail. You got millions of dollars worth of stuff behind you, or you got passengers. And the extra